Hello everybody, this is Basic Exploit Development, and in this video we're going to cover how to install kernel-based virtual machine, aka KVM. Now I want you to navigate to the website help.ubuntu.com community/KVM/installation. Now you can also follow these instructions right here, but basically we're verifying whether or not your PC is actually ready to support virtualization. If most PCs that use Intel or AMD, they allow virtualization. Now, as you can see, this requires some kind of cleanup, Linux documentation, it's all over the place depending on the distro. But what I want you to do is run this command. Sudo apt-get install kvm libvirt daemon system libvirt clients bridge utilities, and one more thing. I want you to also install virt manager. Now I already have this installed, but I'm going to show you the process of how to load a VM using virtual manager. So in this case, what you'll want to do is create a new virtual machine. You need to use local install media, and we're going to look for a virtual machine that we can install. Control-Shift-C to copy that. Browse local, open, forward, give it 2 cores and at least 4096 megabytes of memory. Keep clicking forward, Kali demo, finish. What you want to do is go down with your keyboard to graphical install. And then follow the instructions in this menu. Just choose English, United States, American English. What I suggest doing is using all default settings. It's also important to mention that Kali Linux is actually going through a major upgrade where they're basically ditching Python 2, which is what we're using for exploit development. I plan to remaster the class as soon as the changes are implemented. Also, they're going to be removing the standard root user and instead give you a less than privileged user. But we can restore that. Once again, I'm awaiting the changes to come over. Password. Of course, you're going to pick a better password than that. For me, I live in Pacific time zone. This is where they'll try to find a way to give you your app repos, the closest one. You can either use entire disk, or if you want Lux encryption, use encrypted LVM. So I'm going to choose this. This is the 20 gigabyte virtual disk image that was just created. Follow the default. From no, write yes. Now this is a section that will take forever because what it's doing is overwriting it with random data to prevent it got cut off, to prevent any information or data that you had before on the partition show up from a forensic analysis. I'm going to pause the video right here until this finishes. Alright, welcome back to class. We just skipped the entire section where we were overwriting the untouched partition with basically metadata, or urandom, I believe, randomized characters, basically to completely wipe the hard drive. So right after that screen, you're going to see this if you choose the LVM encryption option. Otherwise, you would skip it. So password, please choose a better password. Just use the default. Finish partition, right change of the disk. Yes. And now we are installing Kali Linux in KVM within its own QCOW2 image file. QCOW2 is a file format made just specifically for KMU KVM. And what I like about KVM is that you can actually convert the disk image into any kind of format. You can make it into a VMDK file for VMware, or you can turn a or a VMDK file from VMware into a QCOW2 image. So let's go skip this again until after the system's installed. You're probably going to spend about maybe 1.5 hours installing everything. Oh, and here's a trick. So you're wondering what to do if you're in full screen, you don't know how to get back to your host operating system / hypervisor. Control Alt, and you see a new mouse cursor. Go directly up, and the left button minimizes it. Alright, so we are finished with the installation process. Let's go full screen this again. Oh, by the way, so Control Alt up here, and this is your full screen button right here. Use a network mirror, yes, if you're connected to the internet. I'm not using a proxy. And now we're just installing additional packages. I am gonna go back and skip this section of the video again. It's like I said before, it's gonna take a while for you to finish installing. Oh, here we are. So Grub is basically the common bootloader used for modern versions of Linux, and because we're installing it on a 20 gigabyte freshly made partition, you should always choose a default for Grub. Install Grub bootloader to the master boot record. Remember, we're in a VM, we're using a virtual disk called a QCOW2 image, so this will be fine. Always say yes on this screen. Then select your hard disk. And we are almost done. So you see this message, make sure to remove the installation media. That's assuming that you were installing using an actual USB boot disk. Normally, KVM would already eject the ISO file. So as soon as this is done and reboots, we are going to go right into Kali Linux. Now, I chose to install using encrypted LVM, Lux encryption. So we have an additional step to log in through before Kali Linux is allowed to boot. I strongly suggest using encrypted LVM anyways. Actually, you guys, I'm going to skip this part of the video too until it reboots. Okay, you guys, so finish rebooting, and you're gonna see this if you're using encrypted LVM. Now, obviously you chose a better password, but my password to unlock this partition was password. Now you log in as root password. Please choose a better password. You might want to adjust your display. Set it to 1080p. Keep changes. And the first thing you want to do is open up a terminal. And change your root password. Now this only changes the password for logging in to your Kali Linux instance, as well as SSHing in, but it's not going to change your Lux LVM encrypted partitions password. You'll have to use things like crypt setup to change that password. Remember, Control Alt, hover your white mouse over, and we are done installing Kali Linux on KVM.